It is not every day a player of this caliber, a player with this level of talent, seemingly becomes available for a trade. And it's really not every day that a player with this level of capabilities is available for trade at a pretty cut price deal. And as I mentioned, this is typically like the exact type of trade that the Raptors are targeting. And typically that's been Masai Ujiri. Like an example is the Brandon Ingram trade. They traded a not so great first round pick, which actually at the time was a not so great first round pick. It has become a better first round pick. So it was a Pacers 26 pick, and they've kind of fallen off this year without Tyrese Halliburton. Anyways, it was a not so great first round pick at the time, and salary filler, expiring salary to get Brandon Ingram. That was a very cut price trade for a player with clear all-star level capabilities. And we may have another example of a situation like that arising with Memphis and Ja Morant. Ja Morant, a lot of talent for sure. Hasn't maybe showcased it as much in the last 2 years. He's been dealing with suspensions. He's been dealing with injuries. This year, he's clearly not getting along with the current coaching regime in Memphis. They're trying to implement a different minute structure. They're giving players more shorter stints on the court. So they're rotating a lot more often, and they want high-intensity bursts out of players, and it kind of seems like Ja Morant is not really getting on with that very well. So obviously, part of the trade, and a lot what you have to consider, is Ja Morant is figuratively a loose cannon. He has dealt with suspensions. He has called out his coaching staff in a post-game interview this season. So there is baggage that is there. But if you can find Ja Morant anywhere close to what he's done in the past in the NBA, I think it's absolutely something worth considering and something that could be worth it. Like, here's a guy who's gotten MVP votes twice in the past. Finished 7th in MVP voting in 2022, 12th in 2023, made an All-NBA team in 2022 as well. And like, he's averaged 27 points per game, 26 points per game. He's done it like pretty efficiently, like before. Mostly not super efficient, not a super big threat from three-pointer, not really definitely not a floor spacer, but somebody who has a lot of ability to attack the rim and put pressure on the rim, and somebody who has a very good level of playmaking prowess, averaging 7.4 assists over the course of his NBA career. True shooting numbers, just kind of out of curiosity, where have they been for the player? Mostly in, the 56 to 57 sort of range. Not too good. It's kind of concerning this year where it is right now. He hasn't played that well to start the season, which is kind of leading to the problems. But if he can get into like the 57 range, that is okay for the Raptors. So there's clearly talent here. Somebody who can score, put pressure on him, who can play make, and facilitate a lot better, I think, for this Raptors offensive core. It just, what is it actually going to take to trade for a player like this? And then based on what the Raptors have to trade to make this happen, does that make sense for the team to pursue? So Ja Morant, I mean, I'm on Fanspo here, and their trade machine, we can see the top two most traded players right now are Ja Morant and Immanuel Quickley. And that is going to be the direction that I also would like to head with Immanuel Quickley and Ja Morant, because I don't really see this making a ton of sense to keep Immanuel Quickley. Like, if you're doing this, you're trying to upgrade at point guard. And as much as Immanuel Quickley can provide floor spacing, I know he struggled this season. For sure he struggled this season. That is honestly a little bit of a factor here. But I don't really see the point of having Ja Morant and Immanuel Quickley on the team. This, for me, is your opportunity to upgrade at point guard. So I'd be comfortable moving off Immanuel Quicklly. Ja Morant comes in this way. And what else would it have to take? Could you give them Jacoby Walter, somebody who's kind of struggling to find minutes, get in rotation, a young player to make this more enticing? And the Raptors, if they're willing, I think like a first-round pick, one pick. I know it's this year's pick, but we're making this trade to be better. We're making this trade to make the playoffs. We can sacrifice, I think, our pick this year to make it happen, and let's see if this works. And it does work. The Raptors are able to make this trade. So it's something along the lines of Immanuel Quickley, Jacoby Walter. I think you could also go in a different direction and say, like, let's do Ochai Agbaji instead, because we still have some promise with Jacoby Walter, so you want to keep a hold of that. And I think this will also still work if you move Abaji. That's obviously, I think, my preference, because I think at some point you do have to trade Ochai Abaji this season. I just see Memphis not really finding a lot of desire in paying Abaji at the end of the season. So I think what would make more sense for Memphis to actually have a chance of saying yes to this trade is one of the younger players. So it could be Grady Dick. I'd be a little bit more comfortable moving off of Jacoby Walter at this point. So let's say this is the framework for a trade. It's Ja Morant coming to the Raptors, and the Grizzlies get Immanuel Quickley. They get a first-round pick for this year in a good draft class. They're betting on us not performing well and getting a good pick there. We're betting on ourselves making the playoffs and not having to worry as much about that pick. And then a young player to kind of sweeten the deal there. Part of the reason why, there's all this baggage, that's why Memphis are maybe interested in trading him at this point. They also might want to move off of this contract. They're not as much in win now mode because they moved off Desmond Bane, got a ton of picks. They can amass another first-round pick here. They may want to move off this. Ja Morant's making $39.4 million this year, $42.1 million the next year, and then $44.8 million the year after that. So there might be a little bit of a desire to move off of that. And from a Raptors perspective, Immanuel Quickley still has years to turn it around, but as of right now, he signed that contract last summer, and it was a slight overpay, I said at the time. And I thought eventually he would play up to the ability where it was no longer looking like an overpay. Well, based on the start of this season, I know it's only a very small sample size. Based on this very small sample size, Immanuel Quickley does not look very good. And therefore, this contract is starting to look a little bit worse. It may be even a plus for the Raptors to be able to move off of this contract in the trade. That's kind of part of what is enticing about it as well. You're able to move off of this contract and upgrade at the point guard position at the cost of one first-round pick. It's difficult for the Raptors to bring talent to Toronto, and this is just another way for them to amass talent to the team, which is why it's enticing to me, and I'd be ready to pull the trigger. Now, we have to mention there are some obvious issues involved with the trade. The Raptors' floor spacing is already not very good. You're taking away somebody who should be one of the prominent floor spacers in the team in Immanuel Quickley to do this. That certainly does pose a bit of a problem. Now, so far this season, Barnes and Barrett have shot the three ball extremely well. I'm definitely not prepared to make a bet on that being sustainable for the rest of the season. Can it be serviceable three-point shooting? Sure. But at the level they're shooting right now, I don't think that is going to keep on going for the rest of the season. So I wouldn't bet on that. You do have to think about the risk that the floor spacing is going to be even worse for the team. My rebuttal to that would be the floor spacing is already really bad. This is somebody who can continue to put pressure on the rim and facilitate for other players to maybe alleviate some of the stress on them by providing assists. And Immanuel just hasn't really done enough in the playmaking department since coming to the Raptors to make me confident in him in that role. You have somebody who can really initiate the offense, and I think that's very good. And defensively, Ja Morant's not a very good defender, and your defense has been poor this season, but Immanuel Quickley's also not that good of a defender, so I don't think you're really losing a lot there. I think in the end, this is a trade that makes the Raptors better, for sure, even with the fit issues associated with it, and those definitely. I think this trade makes the Raptors a fair amount better, and it injects a big upgrade in talent overall to the roster. The Raptors are just continuing to amass talent on the team, and I think that makes this trade worth strongly considering. If the Grizzlies are willing to take Immanuel Quickley in this trade, this is something I'd be willing to do. Now, if we're moving into 2 picks in this conversation, that's where I back off and say it's not really worth the risk on Ja Morant, where his head state's at. It's not really worth the risk on injuries, potential suspensions. He's a repeat offender, so suspensions would only increase if he were to get another, if he would do something else that would be deemed suspension worthy, and there's too much risk with the roster fit and the construction and all of that. If this is a trade involving RJ Barrett, I'm still a little bit hesitant. I don't love Ja Morant and Immanuel Quickley next to each other. I guess, you're still moving off of RJ Barrett, which I've been keen on potentially doing for the Raptors, but he's been playing really well this season, which brings me a little bit back. I think that this trade ultimately makes sense if you're upgrading at point guard, you're getting off that Emmanuel Quickley contract. I would pursue that. As for the Grizzlies, I don't know where they're at right now. How big of a desire is there to trade Ja Morant? Is it big enough to make a trade like this? Maybe it is. And if it is, I think it makes the Raptors a lot better. And I'd be willing to do it. I would bet on Ja Morant. I would bet on his skill. This is somebody with MVP caliber potential. And I'm ready for the Raptors to try and go find that again. Whatever risk there is involved, I think the talent is too great to not want to take that risk.